Today's video, we're looking at a unicorn here, guys, an FM Towns II.
We got 20-minute videos on old technology, computers, laser discs, and some CDs. We got two little dogs licking their balls on the screen, and now it's time for the show.
Alright, so before we get into this video, quick backstory about how I acquired this thing. And just to let you guys know, I've been shooting the video on this machine over a period of a few months, at least 4 or 5 months. So it might be a little disjointed. I had to, get things, different parts to get this thing working as well as I have gotten it working. And I'm doing this intro here at the end of things, so the footage you'll see after me talking is from the past, so it might conflict with maybe something I'm saying now because I didn't have something at the time or something. So just keep that in mind. This intro is being shot at the end of me wrapping up this whole video on this machine. So how did I acquire this machine? I didn't import it. I didn't get it from like eBay auctions or Yahoo Japan or whatever. I actually found this locally in the United States. And I was just perusing Craigslist like I tend to do. Haven't been actually doing that a whole lot lately, mostly because there's been car issues. But usually, I'll go on Craigslist and I'll look for vintage computers. And I came across this relatively, nondescript listing from a guy, no picture or anything, something most people would just pass up, and it was a wanted, like wanted 486, all these different computers. And I was like, let's just see what he wants. So I clicked on it, and at the bottom, he said, I have things to trade, and one of them was an FM Towns. So obviously, my interest was piqued, and I was curious, and I sent the guy an email, and he got back to me the next morning, and we went back and forth, and apparently he was in the military, the Navy, I believe, and he was in Japan for some time, and he was into retro computers, and he had picked up a number of Japanese computers that I would love to get my hands on, and he had a spare FM Towns. Now, he told me up front it had some issues. Cosmetically, it was a little rough, and the CD drive didn't work, but he was willing to trade it for a 46, a working, good condition 46 computer, which if you watch my channel, I have several 46 machines, and although the one I traded him, I liked a lot, and it was a nice machine. I put a lot of effort into building that one. When was I going to come across an FM Towns computer locally? And I already have like 10 46 rigs, so it seemed like a pretty good deal. So a little bit more back and forth, and then I finally met the guy, really cool, nice guy, and here it is. I picked it up. This is the FM Towns II, and I got this in a trade for a 486 machine. So I'll just go over the features really quick, and then we'll go to the footage I took. I opened this thing up, we'll look inside, and then we'll watch my odyssey on seeing if I can get this thing up and running. Starting off, right here we have a speaker, which, well, you'll see in the footage coming up, is a little bit of a problem. Right here is the reset switch. Here is the CD drive right here. Now, I knew this didn't work. He told me it didn't work. Actually, he had never tested it, I believe, with a regular FM Towns game. He had Burns, I believe, and he thought maybe it worked, but maybe it just wasn't reading CDRs, but it doesn't really work, but I knew that. Right here we have an Intel inside. There's an Intel CPU. I think it's a 25 megahertz 46SX, I believe, is the CPU in this thing. I believe. You'll see later when I open it up. It's been a while, but this is a little panel that opens up. And in there, you probably can't see it from the camera angle, but there's another little slot, and I believe it's for some kind of memory card, maybe a proprietary memory card. It says IC memory card on their panel. If anyone wants to elaborate on what that is, please let me know. So here's the keyboard port on the front. I believe that's proprietary. Here's some audio jacks. There's a mic and a phones jack for headphones. There's also a slider here for volume for the speaker, max and min. So volume. We have two, these are labeled pad and mouse. So I guess these are like mouse connectors or gamepad connectors, because this was this was a big gaming PC in Japan, so that would make sense that there would be two on the front, kind of like a console. They even made a consoleized version of this called the Marty. So there's the power button, two floppy drives. These are standard 1.44 megabyte floppy drives, although I don't recall right now if the connectors on them are proprietary or standard, but these are just, 1.44 megabyte drives. And then we have different lights here. We have a light for the IC card, which is that memory card, or whatever it is. A fast light, so I guess there's probably a turbo switch on this. I don't see a turbo button, so it's probably a keyboard command. CD access light and hard drive light. It says hard drive option. So it's been a couple months since I actually opened this thing and poked around. I don't recall. I don't think there's a hard drive in here. And then that's the power LED. So let's turn it around and take a look at the back. Alright, so here's the back of the machine. We have two slots here for expansion cards, kind of rusted. Okay, so starting here we have the analog RGB, so that's your video out. This isn't, obviously it's not a standard looking connector, so you'll need an adapter. But it will output. I've read a lot of different things about this in the video output, but I'll talk about that later in the video. Right here, here is the printer port. Right here is an RS232C port. I think that's serial. SCSI right here, and you can use, I have an adapter right here to SCSI 1 to SCSI 2 adapter. That works just fine. And then we have some RCA audio out and in jacks. And then here's a power, I believe that's for a monitor. But something I don't like about it is the power cord is hardwired to it. And it's not even a 3-prong, it's just a really dinky looking standard sort of power cable. This works fine on US power supplies. You can plug this right in to the wall and it works just fine. But yeah, I don't really care for that being actually connected there, but whatever. So yeah, the model of this now, finding information on models, differences in the West with these FM Towns computers can be rough, especially when you have one like this that's kind of not one of the bigger models. Now, you'll see a lot of people on YouTube, there's basically two of these FM Towns computers that seem to be really popular. And one is kind of the gray tower, and it's kind of unique. It has the CD drive on the front and the bottom, and it opens, it doesn't come out like a tray. It kind of opens like that, and you put it in. I would like to have one of those, but yeah, that one you see a lot, and the other one is like an all-in-one unit. It almost looks like a compact Mac. Those seem to be the most popular FM Towns in the West. So models like this, there's not a lot of information. I don't know Japanese. It's hard to get specifics. There isn't really a model number just stuck on the front or something like that. It just says FM Towns 2. But if you look here, here we have FM Towns 2. Then we got some Japanese in SE20, and then the model FMTW, probably FM Towns 25E2. So maybe it's a 20. Yeah, did I say that? 25 megahertz 486SX, I believe, is what's in there. The CPU. We'll see in a minute when I open this thing up. But yeah, so not a lot of information on this machine. And I also have the keyboard for this. This actually isn't a matching keyboard. This is for another kind of FM Towns, but it works just fine on this. Obviously, this is a gray one. This is from one of those FM Town machines that are a lot more popular that you see a lot of videos of on YouTube. They're the gray ones. And it's in pretty good shape. Missing a key here, but it's a cap here, but it still works. And other than that, it all pretty much works. These keyboards alone are like $200 on eBay. So yeah, if you get an FM Towns machine, make sure you get a keyboard with it, because I believe it's proprietary, and it's not like you can just go to Goodwill and grab a keyboard from a pile of keyboards. So now we're going to go on my little trip for the last couple months of me gathering parts for this thing and trying to get it operational, more or less. So let's go on our little journey. Alright, so I'm going to open this thing up and we're going to take a look inside of it. Now this is actually not my first time opening this machine up. I opened it up, I took it completely apart when I first got it, and I took video, but I didn't take still images for the blog. It was done really poorly. I was really excited. I wanted to poke around and look inside, and when I went back and I looked at that footage I took, a lot of it was just unusable. So I'm just going to have to open it up and we're going to do this again, although I'm a little less enthusiastic now because there's a lot to this thing inside. It's not as easy to take apart as a regular PC, so not necessarily looking forward to it, but we're going to dive back in and see what this thing looks like on the inside. I may go back and forth between the footage I'm taking now and the footage I took previously, what's salvageable of that anyways. And another reason I might be jumping back and forth some of that older footage I took is because there was some kind of corrosion on this board when I went and looked through, and I cleaned a lot of it up, but I wanted to show you guys, so that's mostly probably what I'll be jumping back to and showing you with the older footage. Now, there's screws on the front of these, the side, front on both sides, and then you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on the back, and then it just lifts off. Here we are with the top off. You can see there's really nothing exposed. There's just metal parts all over it. I believe the power supply's here. Here's our cage for like the hard drive and the CD drive, and then here's our floppy drives, and these are all connected together with little metal pieces, and you have to unscrew them and take it apart piece by piece if you want to get to the motherboard down below. Now, thankfully the one piece that is exposed here is RAM. I don't have any extra RAM installed in this thing. I'm actually not 100% sure if it's like proprietary or if the RAM is just standard. I think it's just standard. I don't think it's anything special, but don't quote me on that. Okay, so right here we have kind of a daughter board that comes off it, and this is for the expansion cards, video, sound cards, things like that. Although it is obviously not like standard ISA or anything. I don't know if it's electronically compatible with ISA and just a different form factor, but this looks like those ports, or these look like those slots you see on Macs, some older Macs, like I think it's New Bus or PDS or something. I'm pretty sure it's not the same, but it looks similar. And these, I don't know what those things are. So yeah, this hooks in, and this kind of cage, I guess, kind of holds the expansion cards. So that's interesting. Right there, I don't know if you can see it, it's a little bit dark. I believe that's a port for like a CPU expansion cards. Okay, so and interestingly, to take that little cage off, you actually have to unscrew these things. These could use some sanding down, get that rust off. But you actually have to remove the screws here to pull off that cage piece over there. And here's where the floppy goes. It's not really standard. I mean, that connector looks standard, but power, it looks like they connect to the board right there. So here is the back of those floppy drives. Alright. So now I'm going to pull out this CD drive and then the power supply. And then there's yet another metal shielding over the motherboard that we'll have to take off. Alright, so here's the drives, the two floppy drives here. Now this top one isn't quite to the door, but this piece of metal here was bent. I tried to bend it up a little bit. Now the previous owner says these do work, although they do look a little worse for wear. They look pretty standard in the back. I mean, there's some jumpers, but I have plenty of floppy drives with jumpers. Looks, well, no, power thing. Well, that's different how it connects to the board, but this is just a cable. These might, I'll have to look up the model number, but these might just be kind of standard 1.44 megabyte floppy drives, because the cables are pretty standard. Now here's the CD drive over here, FM Towns II. Well, I know this is not a standard CD drive. There's the model right there. But I know this thing does have a SCSI connector on the back. So as far as I know, you can bypass these drives and you can use an external SCSI drive. Here's the power connector, not exactly AT or ATX. And here is the CD drive. Now, the great sadness of these FM Towns And it's the problem this one has is when these CD drives go, and they are proprietary, there's no replacement. There's no third-party replacements, and yeah, it's just no one has, at least as far as I know, no one has figured out a way to fix or replace these, which is a shame because a lot of games demand that it has to use this. I mean, this machine was built around these, and this was very early when it comes to CD drives and computers, so it makes sense that it's proprietary, but I mean, it's just a shame because a lot of games specifically look for this drive, like the first drive. Now you can get around it, like I tried to with an external SCSI drive or putting in a hard drive. But as far as I know, there's no kind of reliable programs, like say how the Amiga has a WHD load that lets you play, I believe, the majority of Amiga games straight from the hard drive. As far as I know, there's really not an option like that for the FM Towns or the Towns II. So when this thing is dead, you're really limited on what games you can play. They either have to have been on floppy, and I don't know a lot of Towns games that were on floppy, or that can maybe read from the hard drive, install and read from the hard drive, or the external SCSI drive. And I believe most of them, though, they will only really play through this, they'll really only play, or they want to play through this primary proprietary CD drive. Now, here's the interfaces here. It looks like IDE, but it's not. So it's just a shame there weren't even any like third-party solutions, and the problem's only getting worse. So if you're someone that's like good with, you know, engineering and electrical stuff, and you want a project, do the community a favor and find a way to replace these. Either some kind of adapter or something would be great. Or even like a software option, something like WHD load would be wonderful. So I was pretty much ready to put this video up. I mean, it was edited, it was put together. I just had to make a thumbnail for it and upload it to YouTube. And then I had a discovery that I literally just discovered. I had to put into the video. Apparently there may be an emulator drive for the CD drive on the FM Towns. It looks like it's from the same guys that did the optical drive to SD card conversion mod for the Dreamcast and the Sega Saturn. Apparently they have one for the FM Towns Marty. Now the thing is, I have no idea if the FM Towns Marty uses the same CD interface as the FM Towns and FM Towns 2 computers. I would maybe assume they did, but I do not know for sure. Now, for those of you that do not know, the FM Towns Marty is a consoleized version of the FM Towns and FM Towns 2 computer. So it's basically just the computer, you know, watered down into basically a console with the CD drive. But as I said, I do not know if it uses the same CD drive interface as the computer version. Looking through all of their stuff on their website and all their stuff, I can't find any references to it working on an FM Towns computer. I can't find anyone that has tried it. There's probably just not a lot of demand in North America for that sort of thing, but it seems to work just fine as a CD drive replacement for the Marty, so I don't know. I don't see why it wouldn't work for the computer if it had the same interface. Of course, you've got the form factor difference because the Marty is a top loader, whereas the FM Towns computers are like traditional sort of 5 1/4 inch drive bay sort of things. You might be able to hack something together, or maybe even just pull out the drive and have a cable made interface that comes out to the I don't know, it might be pretty ugly, but at least it would work. But I can't find any concrete information on if this optical to SD emulator drive would work in the FM Towns computers. But if it does, it would be great, although these things are expensive as hell. Probably just as expensive as importing an FM Towns computer. A couple $100, $300 or $400 maybe. I don't know exactly, that's off the top of my head. But I needed to put that in the video, so that, I guess that is a possible solution if it works. But if any of you guys know if this thing that works in a Marty, I think it's called the Doc Brown version 2, I think they're on. I think this just came out in 2018. If any of you guys know if this thing should work in an FM Towns computer, please let us know in the comments. Or even if you just know that the Marty uses the same CD drive interface as the FM Towns, if that's the case, it should work. So yeah, let us know in the comments. Here's the other interface, and I believe this is for a hard drive. I don't know if that is IDE. It's probably not. Everything on this thing is proprietary. Alright, so take this part off and take this metal, I guess it's shielding, it just covers the motherboard. Then we'll take a look at the board itself. Actually, after putting everything back together and re-looking at this, I believe this is 50-pin SCSI, which is good, so that should be universal with any SCSI hard drive. Alright, so we got all that off. Here's the power supply here. Big fan, again, not a standardized form factor, at least not in North America. And then we just have this metal plate over it that we'll unscrew and take off, and then finally we'll have full access to the motherboard. Alright, so here we go. The motherboard itself finally reveals itself to us, and a lot of chips on this thing. Probably a lot of proprietary chipset stuff that I can't begin to figure out what it does, but there are a few familiar things on here. So just to go over these connectors again real quick, RAM here, although I'm pretty sure, almost positive there's RAM on board. There has to be, or else I wouldn't have been able to boot it and mess with it, which I believe this is, but I'm not sure how much RAM it is. Here's that memory card slot. Here's our power connector. Here is the connector, I believe, for the hard drive and the CD-ROM drive. Here's the connector for that, well, to the daughter board that has those. Here's the connector to the daughter board that has the expansion slots. Here's our floppy connectors with the power and then the connector. And I believe this slot here is for a CPU upgrade card. So I know you can upgrade this thing to a DX2, 66 megahertz DX2. And I think it's just a card that you clip in there. So kind of forward thinking. Here's our CPU. It is an Intel 46SX. It's 25 megahertz. Now there are many different models of the FM Towns. I believe some of the earlier ones had 386s in them, and I think some of the later ones maybe came standard with faster 46 processors. I'm even pretty sure you can mod these things to accept AMD 5x86s at 133 megahertz. So it's like any PC from the time of big range of different models. Here's the battery, not standard. I mean, I think it's just a lithium battery, but of course it couldn't just be a standard battery holder clip. It's a different size there. A lot of different chips that I have no idea what they do, probably just controlling various things. This is a little interesting thing. And it's not bulging from like heat or anything like that. I think there's chips under there and it's covered. Maybe they're sensitive. I do see some Yamaha chips. We have a Yamaha chip here, and I believe there's another one right here. So yeah, we've got our Yamaha sound chips on there, and I guess that's it. There's not really much I can do or understand in here, but it's kind of a rare look on the inside of these things, at least in the West. These are very uncommon. So, yeah, I guess now the fun is putting it all back together again. So here's the faceplate, the very yellowed faceplate. Here's the other side of it. We have a speaker, and then here's the connection for all the little lights on the front. That's about it for that. Alright, well, I don't have the right adapter. I have plenty of monitors that I'm sure will accept the signal this puts out, but I don't quite have the cable adapter, but I can at least see if it powers up. Powering up would be a good sign. So I have it plugged in, so let's see. That was a weird sound. But we have light here, and I don't know if that's normal, but we do have a power light. I can hear the fan, so that's good. I don't know if that's supposed to be on. I really don't know anything about these, so it might be looking. No, yeah, see, okay, I think that's pretty normal. It's probably searching for like a boot floppy maybe. I don't know why the speaker is continuously emitting a hiss, even if the volume's put all the way down. Let me see if the drive comes out. That's good. That's something. Okay. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure. I bet these are looking for. Let me see. He gave me a boot, SCSI boot, and a DOS boot. So I bet it's looking for a disk to boot. See if it does anything. Do. Okay. I can hear it. So I think maybe it's loading DOS, though we can't see anything, obviously. But these are, well, now it's looking over there. So I don't know. Now he gave me the SCSI boot because he told me there was possibly some issues with the built-in drive. So he gave me the original owner of this external SCSI drive, and so I'm guessing the theory is we can boot from this. I know the Towns is weird. It's like one of the first machines to. That's annoying. That like can boot from a CD, or the OS can be on it. I don't know. I've got to do more research. Like I said, this is just my initial checking out of this thing. So, but that's really good news that the power came on. There's that hiss, but I think I just realized after all this time, this slider probably only is for the volume for, if you were using a mic or headphones. It probably doesn't affect the speaker itself, which is why nothing happens when I do that. So, alright, so here we are again with the, it's been actually maybe about a month since I last shot anything on this computer, and I finally got this cable in here. Now what this cable does, it should let me hook up the FM Towns to any VGA monitor. So it connects to the Towns right there, and then any VGA monitor. Now, I've heard different things about the video output on this thing, and even these Towns II VGA adapter cables. Now, pretty much everything I read says these work, but there seems to be some question about if they destroy certain monitors. I've heard people say they had issue with these when using certain LCD monitors, and it could destroy the monitor. I've heard other people says that's not true, or I'm not sure, but that's just some things I've read. I'm using a CRT, and what I've read, it has no problems with CRTs. I've also heard the FM Towns outputs weird video signals, so I don't have any games to test, so this cable may actually work, and I still won't get anything, because from what I've read, when it posts and boots up, it's actually outputting like 15 kilohertz, which my monitor isn't going. I don't think a VGA monitor, a standard one, I don't think is going to see that. It's going to be out of range. And then some games output 27 kilohertz, and then most games output like a standard, whatever the 30 something, I forget, whatever the standard for VGA is. So I still might not get any signal whatsoever, but I'm going to hook it up real quick to my Sony CRT, and we'll see if anything happens. Alright, so we're all hooked up back here, so let's see if anything happens. Up. Something. It's picking up something. See, there's the Christmas tree in the background. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. Well, the computer works. That's good. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get very far. I don't have any software or anything, but it is outputting right off the bat to this CRT monitor, VGA CRT monitor. So that's cool. I still don't know. There's something wrong with the speaker or something, and the volume control does nothing, so that's going to be really annoying. I wonder if that will stop if I put a game in, but that's a really good sign that I got something. Now I just need to find a game and get something going there. You see? So that is a big plus. Okay, here's another cool thing. I decided to put in that DOS boot disk he gave me, and the floppy drive works, and it did boot up to this Japanese version of MS-DOS 6.2. So that is cool that the floppy drive works out. I don't know. Let's see. I wonder if like commands like dir. Yeah. So I mean, it works. I mean, the commands are the same. I'm pretty sure, but it's obviously in Japanese. I guess if I really wanted, I could take a Google Translate to it. Although I think I know what most of this stuff is here. So that's kind of cool that we know that it's basically working and that the floppy drive works. At least we know that much. Alright, so let's just, to make things sure, let's just find an FM Towns game, an actual game and not an CDR to try. Wow. Wow. Did I accidentally put in Neo Geo? Holy f. Alright, so here we are a few weeks later, and I had a little bit to drink one of these nights, and I made the mistake of hopping on eBay, and there we go. I have my first FM Towns game. Probably paid a little more than I should have, but it was a lot less than most of the other FM Town games on eBay, so I guess I shouldn't feel too bad. I picked SimCity because, well, I love the game SimCity. The price wasn't too horrific. I'm familiar with the game, and I believe this version's in English and Japanese, or I'm guessing it's probably at least mostly there's a lot of English, and even if there isn't, I know how the game plays, so I can still play the game. So finally I have a game to kind of test out the FM Towns, see if I can at least get it to play a game. So I'm curious if this really is any different from just the PC version. Probably not. Maybe the graphics kind of look the same, maybe slightly enhanced. Maybe the sound is a little better. Not really sure. Not many pictures in here. I wish there were pictures. There's like 3 of those, like 3 images there. And there's like one more somewhere. And then there's like that. And then the rest is just text. You'd think SimCity there'd be a lot of like pictures of the buildings and stuff. Oh well. Okay, well let's hook up the FM Towns and see if I can get it to work. Now, this does say it requires 2 megabytes of RAM, and off the top of my head I'm not sure how much RAM is installed in that FM Towns, but 2 megabytes is pretty low. So I'm guessing it came with at least 2 megabytes installed. I don't know why I didn't check before. I guess I'll try to check this time. But unfortunately, it's not reading it. Now the guy said that he had CDRs and he couldn't get this to read CDRs, but he didn't say that it just seems to be dead in general. So I'm going to go with plan B here and try this other disc he gave me, and this is SCSI Boot. And he gave me a external SCSI drive. This has an external SCSI connector on the back. I will put this in. I will hook up the external SCSI drive and put the game in that and see if we can boot that way. And just for fun, I did put the FM Towns game SimCity in my PC just to see if it would read and make sure the CD was okay, at least as far as I could tell from a PC. And it seemed to see the data and just fine. Okay, so here we are. I'm pretty eager to see if this will work. Here's my external SCSI drive. It's a CDR S820. It's pretty old. And here it's back hooked on the back. I have a little adapter for the This drive uses like a newer SCSI connector. Have a little adapter. I have the SimCity FM Towns game in here, and I have that SCSI boot floppy he gave me in drive A. So let's see if anything happens. Okay, here we go. Sorry for the light. Yeah, close that door. Hopefully that helps a little bit with the glare. We got it's booting from the floppy. Something's happening. So we got something going on, and it's reading from the floppy. Nothing from the CD drive yet. Okay, we got something. It sees the SCSI. It says device name, Town CD, SCSI ID, and then we have an A prompt. So I wonder if I have to just do this manually. Okay, so it sees it. It sees the device, so that's good. It takes me to, it's not like booting from it. It's not booting from the CD in the SCSI drive. It's like taking me to the A prompt. And I for some reason I'm having trouble. I don't know if in this version it makes it the D drive. I believe that's in Japanese DOS, abort, retry, fail. So I think I have to like manually access it through the command prompt. Okay, so this is what I found out by doing some searches. Apparently you need to set the ID to 6, so it actually was set correctly. And I'm still having an issue. I also read that Q is the default drive letter for external. So here we are back in the room, and this is the progress I've made so far. So I booted with that SCSI boot disk. I set things back to 6, so you know, here it's seeing the external drive. Then I tried to access, I changed it to Q, and I didn't get a abort, retry, fail. I actually got a prompt for the Q drive, which I'm assuming is that external CD drive. So I have SimCity in there. I put in the dir command, and I got CDR101 not found. I guess that's progress. It's at least now it knows that Q is the drive, I think. So that's something. That's progress. And now, is my CD not good? It looked good. Or is it the laser now? So maybe the drive is bad, which is possible because it has a lot of trouble like opening and closing. So now I could have a bad CD. Or I could have a bad SCSI CD drive. So I do have more SCSI drives, just not easily like sitting around. So maybe I'll try that. So who knows how long it will be till the next part of this video. Maybe I'll just put this video out as it is and then do a part 2 once I get it working. Maybe I can get some helpful tips in the meantime in the comment section. So I don't know. So I guess this is some kind of progress. So yay. Yeah, I tried cleaning up those connectors again, and I tried putting SimCity back in there, and I could see it. It will spin, and then it will stop, and then it's just stuck on the 0. So yeah, I thought maybe I made sure it was connected real securely and cleaned those connectors up a little bit more, and still nothing. You know, here I am in the DOS 6.22 for the FM Towns, and I tried running check it. So I could, you know, double check things like memory and CPU speed and stuff. And, you know, it saw the floppy disk, but when I tried to run the program, I just got weirdness. So it's not really, doesn't seem to be, you know, really fully compatible. At least check it isn't. Okay, so here I ran the mem command, and so it looks like we have 561K of conventional memory. I think this machine maybe only have 1 megabyte built in, which is, I'm kind of surprised because I thought it at least had 2 megabytes. Alright, so I did install some memory in this thing. I poked around in DOS, I did the mem command and looked around that. I think this motherboard has 2 megabytes of RAM built in. So I did some experimenting, I added some 72-pin RAM to it, and it was a little picky. I finally came across a stick of 16 megabytes, and I installed that, and it seems to, when I power it up, it seems to count the RAM up to 18 megabytes. I tried to put 2 sticks of 16 megabytes, matching pairs, and I would get an error when it would boot up. with just one stick, it seems to count up to 18 just fine. That's more than enough. I thought maybe this was one that had 6 megabytes built into it, but apparently it has 2 megabytes, I think. Now, looking online at different sources, it said the motherboards that had 2 megabytes built in were only expandable to 10 megabytes, but it appears this one is counting up to 18, so who knows. It's a little hard because every kind of piece of software I use that I generally use in DOS to get specifics, get details, look at the RAM, look at the CPU speeds, stuff like top bench or CPU check or CPU ID, check it, things like that, they lock up when you try to run them on this machine, probably because all the proprietary stuff in there just creates incompatibilities with the software. But let me power this thing up now with the RAM. I'll show you guys what it's like booting up. There we go. There's that dog head. Kind of looks like one of my dogs, a little bit goofy look on his face. But yeah, here it's just going to cycle through, but it's not going to find anything. There's no hard drive. I don't have any of those IC memory cards. I don't have a floppy in the drive or anything like that at the moment, so it's just going to continuously cycle through. Like I've already talked about, it's basically a glorified brick at the moment, though, since just the floppy drives work and that primary drive there just does not work. I would try to mess around with that external SCSI, but I still can't get anything to run from it. So anyways, as I was putting this video together, shooting footage for it and stuff, last week, the guy that I got the FM Towns off of got back to me, and he had this guy right here to give me, and this is the CPU upgrade card. If you remember that CPU upgrade slot we were looking at earlier on the motherboard, this is actually the card for it. It has a little integrated fan here, heatsink. There's the connector right there. Now he tells me this is a 66 megahertz DX2, which would be a pretty significant upgrade from our 25 megahertz SX46 that's soldered onto the motherboard. Now, if you can see, it's probably hard to see, but the CPU is directly soldered onto this upgrade card. So I guess theoretically you could upgrade the CPU upgrade card, but you would have to desolder the CPU and solder on another one. But you have to be mindful of things like voltage, since the 46, the SX, 25 megahertz SX, and this the DX2 chips use 5 volts. So if you were going to upgrade to a DX4 or something like an AMD 5X86, that would be 3.3 volts. So I suppose in theory maybe you could solder on like a 46 overdrive that has a built-in voltage regulator or something like that would work. I'm curious, the frontside bus, the DX2 would use a 33 megahertz frontside bus, where the 25 megahertz SX on the motherboard is running on a 25 megahertz frontside bus. Now, I don't see any jumpers or anything on the board, so I'm assuming when you install this, somehow it changes the system frontside bus. But other than the CPU, it's a pretty plain card. I don't see jumpers. Those little black box things look like jumpers, but they're not. I don't see anything on here. It's where the fan is powered that would tell the motherboard to switch to a different frontside bus, but maybe it's probably built into the motherboard, whatnot. Like, again, I'm not a technical whiz on this stuff, unless this is actually a 50 megahertz DX2, but I don't even have software to confirm the CPU speed, because everything I try just locks up. So I will install this just to install it, and yeah. Alright, well, even though I can't run any software to, confirm what the CPU is running at and what's going on, I decided to try to install that little CPU upgrade card. It's pretty easy. There's 2 little guide rails. It just slides in. So let's see if there's any difference. I'm going to power it up. Can't really see the fan. I'm trying to listen. Don't see anything. Monitor's just acting as it usually does, just shifting through all the different boot options. But let me try feel it. Oh yeah, I feel a little breeze coming up, So that, I believe that fan is spinning, but again, I really don't have any way to confirm that it's actually running. I don't think there's any CPU checking software built into DOS. I don't know, but it does install pretty easy. Alright, so that's that. That's my Odyssey with this FM Towns II machine. Unfortunately, it hasn't really worked out for me. Do I really regret my decision to make a trade for this? No. I traded a 486 for this, even though it was a cool 486. Even though this isn't working, it was still, I think it was a good trade, even if just for the keyboard, because I know the keyboards are hard to come by, at least in North America. And then if I ever come across like a lone FM Towns, I have the keyboard, which sometimes can be more expensive than the computer. So still a good trade, if even just for the keyboard. It's really a shame about these CD drives, because once they go, I mean, it's really meant, these machines were really set up to play most of the games through that drive, and it sucks that it's proprietary. I understand why, because this was really early with CD drives and computers in the early 90s, but there's just no replacement for them. And when they die, like I said, you kind of have workarounds with external SCSI drives and hard drives, but it's not a good solution, and many games will just refuse to work. So I wish someone would come up with a fix for that. But yeah, that's my Odyssey with the FM Towns 2. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, questions, if you have anything that you think might help me in this situation to get this thing up and running, let me know. And if you're like into tinkering with electronics and stuff, and you want to, please try to find some kind of solution for these proprietary CD drives and these things. It's a pain in the ass if you're an FM Towns enthusiast, and there's some really cool games on this thing, but it is what it is. It was a learning experience. So hope you liked the video, and I'll see you next time.